It's just more start recording.
Okay. So I hit it, but it didn't do anything.
There it goes.
There it is. And where does it go once it's recorded?
It will download to the chat, and then you download it from there. You can put it wherever you want.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's so fun. Okay.
Howdy there, folks.
Thank you, Chris.
I knew Abby was waiting for it.
We got it. We got to start it off fresh. We got to start it off right. All right. So let me be plain about field reports. Okay. When you're doing a field report, I've probably should stress first and foremost that this goes to everyone. Owner, owner's representative, the lender, the contractor, your boss, my boss, all of it, right? That is, you probably don't email more people than when you email with a field report. So implications that don't phone it in. Get it right. Be thorough. Like, especially if they are sending you that, like they pay thousands of dollars just so I can fly about the country in a fart tube in the sky just to do these things.
Literally, it says fart tube in our proposals.
It literally does. Should probably have Vadim look at the proposals, but since he doesn't, I get to put what I want in there. I digress. How do I do it? All right. So when you do these field reports, first and foremost, if you're not familiar, like intimately familiar with the job, I try not to send people on jobs unless there's a field report that's been done previously. And you'll find, here's an example of one that's done previously. The first thing I put in there is a site plan. It's ideal for you to take the site plan with you on your journey. And I always send out the site plan with the field report. And sure enough, a lot of times when I do these field reports on the site plan, you'll notice I'm like labeling garages. I might label the trash enclosures 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I add a little bit of stuff to these site plans to help out with this, because you want to be able to identify what you're taking a photo of, right? And it's sometimes you'll find that building 3, for example, and building 10 look exactly the same. Right, so having the site plan as part of your field report is clutch. The second thing you want to do is when you get on site, have the site plan with you. Take your photographs in order. Walk to building 1, take your photos. Walk to building 2, take your photos. Photograph in order, unless you know the site well. That will save you a ton of time when you are writing the field report. Okay. What to take photos of. Every building should have photos of it. When the building is built or at an advanced stage, enough that framing is complete and they're roofed in, you want to make sure you take at least one photo inside of every building, right? You want to be able to describe the state of completion on the outside of every building, the state of completion of the breezeway of a building, and the state of completion of the units, okay? 1, 2, 3, every building, bang, bang, bang. Make sure you take a photograph of those 3 things, right? So let's kind of see what that would look like. Also, for your record, like when I do the rental cars, I take photographs of the rental car. 4 photos, click, 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 click. I rent enough rental cars. I've had trouble with these people before. Have evidence. But again, y'all aren't there yet, but it's just might as well be worth saying on this particular journey. All right, so here's me going in order. I go up to a building. I take a photo of the building. I make sure I can see the majority of the building. Ideally, you want photos where you can see the roof too. Is the roof, tar paper on? Are the roof shingles on? You want to have photos where you'd be able to tell that kind of information, right? Then I step in. All right, this is where the breezeways are at. Okay, they're mudding and taping the breezeways. Here's the units. I want to say this is about what I would call about 75% done on rough in MEP, rough in mechanical, electrical, plumbing. You could call it rough in MEP and F too if they got the fire protection sprinkler system sort of cooking as well, right? 1, 2, 3. How you take those photos. It works really, really well. For the longest time, I used to do panorama photos. But I found on my phone, these modern phones they've got a 5%, kind of like you get a fisheye zoom on it, right? Versus that closer picture. Just pop it at like 5x, 0.5x. Take all your photos. You see more with the photos, but it's real nice. They fit really well into the reports. See that? All these photos are taken at like that. And again, everybody's phone's different, but if you zoom out the phone a little bit, these, longitudinal photographs, landscape photographs, they read really well in the reports. Okay. When you're doing the report, make sure you kind of know, who was there, who you need to copy, date, time, and weather. And this becomes particularly important on a HUD job. We set up every single report as though it were a HUD job. So then we keep it all standard, right? And then the thing I get questions the most on is what is the estimated percent of completion? That's a good question. One of the easiest ways you can tell what your estimated completion is is if there's a draw at the meeting that you're going to. And when you go to a HUD draw, that's always going to be a part of it. Okay. So here's an example of a HUD draw. You can see me coming in. I'll sign and date. It has to be in blue ink for a HUD job, by the way. Signing first page, and then I'll sign the schedules up to a point where you start seeing zeros on the monthly value and accrued work. So here I was from February. Their actually accumulated total progress, they estimated at 58.49%. And they're basing that off of what they built. Okay. I think on my report, I put 60%. It doesn't have to be nuts on, but usually some version of these draws will help you more than anything gauge at what percent this job is complete, right? You could also do it if they don't have these percentages. You could also do it based on how much of the total money they've drawn down, right? Or asked to be paid for. Okay. That helps too. The other way is just do a lot of these field reports and you'll figure out what percentage they are complete. I kind of start to get a feel where I just sort of know more or less, right? That just
Here's
kind
a
of
question.
Yeah.
See how on these draws, typically there will be an actual accumulated progress and scheduled progress. Those are two different percentages you've got there, right? They were supposed to be at 86% by February. They're actually at roughly 60. There is a line on our standard field report that says, is it on schedule? And the answer is almost always invariably no.
The last 2 years have been no.
Do you ever write no?
Yes. But let's look at what I did. You want to make sure if you're going to write no, call me.
Right.
God,
yeah,
call me.
I don't for that exact reason.
Good. And if you do write no, do what I did. I have a explanation as to why it's no. If you just put no and leave it blank, the bank is going to start to ask questions. And that's sometimes a good thing. That's why you go and to hold contractors accountable. But if you write no, you better be damn sure it's no.
Well, so I typically just say yes.
I want to point out too, like and okay, the bigger the job, right, the more the percentage matters too. So like, let's say I was working on a $200 million job, then a 2% lapse in schedule could be fairly significant. On a garden style job, if they're off by 5%, and I know that the procurement, they've had supply issues, for example, or they found unsuitable soils or some sort of combination, some issue, I'm just going to say yes to a certain degree, especially if I know that the HUD inspector that's out there with me, that we're all on the same page. Like, if I feel like the contractor is not doing their job or being shady, then I'm bringing Tony in. Like,
Yeah,
that
so
doesn't
the
mean to
answer
stop.
is only say no if you think the contractor's being shifty.
Well, no, you can say no, even though that, like, this job in particular, the contractor is definitely above board. It's just like they started this job during COVID.
Mhm.
Like, it really properly went to shit, but nobody cares. Basically, they're like, yeah, no, we get it. In these field reports, you'll see it says when you do them. Hopefully, again, they'll be started fresh. I try to get the right header. Like, I think in Florida, we're Kentucky Architecture Studio LLC, so I try to get our legal name right. Minor things. I do buildings, again, derivative of the picture process we just talked about. You want to be able to describe the status of each building on site, and then any sort of additional stuff that, accessories to the thing. All right. Adding pictures, right? So if you're here, you've got your photos. This was something, these field reports, okay, they're set up so that no matter what size photo you take, I've tickled the Word file. So if your blinker, cursor, whatever you want to call it, is in the right box, you can grab a picture, pick this one, drag it in, drop it, it resizes to fit, right? So let's say my cursor was here and I drug it there. See that? People, that's just a silly question people ask me all the time. Why aren't my photos going in correctly? I'm like, are you in the right grid? Are you in the right cell? Okay. That's how those things work. They made it a lot easier so you don't spend a lot of time wasting resizing photos. Okay. From there, I don't get too descriptive with it. Everybody does field reports a little bit differently, but I like them to read really clean. I like to just say clubhouse, building 1, building 2, building 3, building 4, building 5, building 6. I want these things to be nice, crisp pictures, read in order clearly, have some description of where each and every building's at, kind of a little bit of a description of where it's being taken. And then especially it helps, like initially in the site when there's no buildings anywhere, I'll try to be more descriptive about the view direction. So I'll say something like photo taken from like northeast corner of the site, looking west, right? Across future building pads 3, 4, and 7. Who knows, right? So again, you could look at any of these jobs and look at some of these early field reports to kind of glean that information. Make sure you're signing it. Make sure you're putting the date. If you write it, it needs your information here. It won't say Warren, you did it, own it. Same with prepared by. Whoever does it, that's you. You're not going to hide behind my name. You did it, put it on there. Make sure you get the date. Make sure you cover kind of material stored on site. And then any sort of site work that they may or may not have going on. Feel free to, when you do the field reports, make sure when you go to the job site, go to the job trailer, introduce yourself, make sure you're wearing the proper PPE, hard hat, high vis vest or whatever, steel toe boots, or Julie's fancy shoes, whatever floats your boat, as long as they're safe. And don't do any OSHA violations while you're on site. It's very expensive. No OSHA violations. No, I had one guy before I worked at Studio A. He fell in flowable fill. Yeah, that was bad. I've never had a coworker called. They said they had to extract my employee from the flowable fill. While we're here, everybody understands that everybody can identify. This is a genuine question. This is no stupid answers. Everybody can identify wet concrete, right? Yes? No?
Sure, you step in it
Yeah.
first.
Oh, for fuck's sake, Chris.
You have to
No
feel
request.
it to make sure that it's not dry.
Perfect. You just while they're streeting it, if you could just put a stick in it just to make sure. It's ideally right after they floated it, right? Right after they've got it floated and then broomed so it's perfect, then go step in it. Oh my God. Yeah, yeah. I don't know what else. Does anybody have any specific questions? I will say, okay, so I do my field report. I make sure to include the civil site plan with the report. And then the photos, I just, again, it's like everything else. You grabbed a lot of them and you combine files. It'll make a big PDF. And I send, even if there's photos that I took on site that I don't use in the report, strictly speaking, which is pretty common for me, I'll send all the high resolution photos with it. Just so they can, for whatever reason, it just helps the bank or whoever be able to look at the photos and zoom in if they want to. Stuff like that. It also helps, like, beyond the grab the building, it definitely helps to have a couple of area shots, back on the building so you can see whether or not it's got shingles on, among other things. Try not to do what I did and get your finger in it, Pro photo tip there. Anybody know what this little thing is? Any idea?
So
Next to a retention pond. It's a lift station. Helps move water from one area to another. Lifts it up. Big underground thing. There's several photos from many, many moons ago. Yeah, I think that's about it. That's kind of how you do field reports. I know Matt suffered without a tutorial. Is there anything I'm missing, Matt, that you think I should probably cover on these field reports that I haven't done so already?
no, I think you've summed up everything pretty well.
If there are stored materials on site, like if they've got a whole shipment of lumber or plywood or whatever it is, you'll see it all sitting there. Probably it's good to get pictures of that too. Sometimes the bank will ask.
Are those
Told.
good to just put into the combined picture file, or do you actually want to see those in the PDF report of stored materials or materials on site, anything like that?
It becomes more important if they've got a lot of stored materials. I mean, I don't go too crazy with it. I mean, this report, for example, they had some trusses and some lumber and 2x laying around. They typically don't, especially in this day and age with everything being so expensive, you don't really worry too much about stored materials on site anyway, unless they've got a shipping container that they can lock at night, because they don't want to run the liability. They don't want to run the risk. But yeah, no, you don't have to go too far into stored materials.
Would you mind going over the pricing of how you calculate that a bit more? With percent, or not pricing, your percentage of completion versus
It's
the
not
pricing
really a
of the
calculation.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's say that the
Come up
job
with.
costs, well, let's say the job costs $100 million. That's the loan from the bank. I can look at the draw and say that they've asked for $50 million of that $100 million. Thereby, I kind of can assume that they're probably around 50% complete. Make sense?
So it's really about the money more than where they're at physically.
It's both, but I'm trying to give you good go-bys to help you guys estimate your percentage of completion. So it's kind of like the hardest part, I think, to judge to a certain extent, is that some sites, for example, will have 30% of the fee invested in moving dirt around and getting ready to do the foundations, for example. That can complicate that percentage complete. But usually, you know, they've got to pay for that, you know, so that's where having the money still helps. You got a really hilly site or you got bad, unsuitable soils, you know, that they got to bring in more dirt and compact it. I mean, you could spend tons of money before you put a single drop of cement in the ground.
Okay.
It just takes time. It's just practice. It's not the end of the world if you get it wrong either. Somebody will call you, point it out, and laugh at you. And then you fix it. You'll move on with life. But, oh, what else? I think that's about it, guys.